second Meet the Candidate event for the City of Saratoga Springs. All the candidates on the ballot for Commissioner of Public Works and for Mayor were invited tonight. This event was organized by the League of Women Voters of Saratoga County. And we want to thank Saratoga Springs School District for arranging for the use of this auditorium. Before we begin tonight, I want to remind everyone to turn off all their electronic equipment. This includes candidates and their staff. We ask that there be no videos from the audience. This event will be videoed and posted on the League website in its entirety. The video taken tonight is the property of the League and can only be used by the League or licensed media. It may not be used by the candidates. My name is Ann Krill, and I will be your moderator tonight. I am a member of the League of Women Voters of Saratoga County and reside in the town of Wilton. The League of Women Voters of Saratoga County is a nonpartisan, volunteer, political organization dedicated to the informed and responsible participation of citizens in government. The League never supports or opposes any political party or candidate. That has been League policy since 1920. Membership is open to anyone who is eligible to register and vote, whether male or female. Candidates have been asked not to distribute campaign literature, but to place it on a table outside the auditorium. Please remember that this is not an event for campaigning. No hats, pins, signs, or demonstrations are allowed inside or outside the building. It is League policy to hold forums only for contested elections, when more than one candidate is present. However, if any candidates are here tonight who are unopposed and would like to stand and be recognized, you may do so now. I believe there is only one. John Frank? Okay. I don't see anyone. I realize that many people in the audience may hold strong partisan views. However, I will insist that the candidates in the audience treat each other with respect. No personal attacks will be allowed. I also ask the audience to hold its applause until the candidates finish their closing statements. And I will enforce the rules. The job of the audience is to listen and to ask written questions. We will be taking the written questions. If you have one at this point that you would like to submit, hold it up so that the ushers can pick it up and bring it to the table. If you are using the written forms tonight, please indicate to which race your question is directed, and if you live in Saratoga Springs. Questions should be concise and to the point, however, and should be directed to all the candidates, but if a question is directed to only one, the other candidate may respond as well. Note that we may not have time for all the questions. Our question vetting staff is ensuring that the questions with the most interest get asked first. And they may combine some questions for efficiency and to avoid repetition. They also make sure the questions are clear, readable, and contain no personal attacks or inappropriate language. The timers for this evening are in the front row. They will be holding cards up for the candidates to glance at. Green means 1 minute left. Yellow means 30 seconds. And red means time is up. They also have a small bell. So if after a few seconds you haven't seen the red card, they may ding the bell once. Okay? Just to get our attention. Tonight's event, as you can see, will be divided into 2 segments. The candidates for Commissioner of Public Works will go first, followed by the candidates for Mayor. There will be a brief pause between the sessions while the candidates take their place at the table. During this time, you may submit more questions for the next event. Candidates, please move swiftly to take your seats, and audience, please remain seated so the transitions take place quickly. We want to give as much time as possible to the candidates' views on the issues. So, tonight we have the candidates for Commissioner of Public Works. In alphabetical order, Dylan Moran, who's running on the Democratic line, and Anthony Skip Scirocco, running on the Republican, Conservative, and Independence lines. Now it is time to hear their 2-minute opening statements. They have drawn lots to determine who goes first, and Skip will be giving his opening statement first. This is 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this debate. I really want to take a moment to thank all the voters and the public who have supported me over the years. Serving the people of Saratoga Springs has been my life's work, and it's been an honor as a lifelong resident of the city who raised 2 sons and my wife, and now proud grandparents to 4 grandchildren. I can believe how special it's been to work for this community. I can't believe how special it's been to work for this community that's given me so much. I work hard every day to earn the public's trust. I've been a full-time Commissioner of Public Works, and since first being elected, I focused on rebuilding the infrastructure, working within our means to keep taxes low, and making sure that our city is beautiful year-round. The election I'm running on, this election I'm running on my record and accomplishments. This includes over $10 million of investment into the city's water system, and a 4-year plan that includes an additional $4 million investment to replace undersized water mains. It includes the creation of a new water source at Bog Meadow Wells to meet water source capacity and the preservation of Saratoga Lake as a recreational natural resource. The emergency renovation of City Hall and a 50-year plan for the future of the building. It's about building trails connectors, and caring for the parks. It also includes care for the urban forest, which under my administration earned Tree City USA designation from the Arbor Day Foundation. My record also includes the preservation and protection of our historic treasures, especially those in Congress Park, Campfield, and the Campfield Casino. I've run a positive campaign focused on the issues because that's what I believe Saratogans deserve. DPW will continue building for our future and for everyone. If I'm elected, I would be honored to continue to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you, Skip. Okay, it's time for Dylan. Opening statement, 2 minutes.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. I really appreciate you all showing up. I also would like to thank the League of Women Voters for the role that they play in our democratic process. Again, the right to vote, the ability to express your choice in our government is incredibly important. My name is Dylan Moran. I'm running and I want to be your next Commissioner of Public Works. I've lived my entire life here. I was born and raised here. I'm also a first-generation American. Within that, I've learned a lot of my life, and the success that I've had has really come because of this great community that we live in. I've chosen to spend my entire life here. My family still resides here. The future of this city is my future. I'm a chemical engineer by degree. I've been working in the field of water for over 25 years. And essentially this job, what it represents, the preservation of our water quality, ensuring the public health through our drinking water, being a steward for our infrastructure and our environment. Understanding how to manage a $12 million department efficiently to get the most out of it. Those are the things that drive me to want to be here, and also the debt of gratitude that I have to this community. That really is what's driving me more than anything to stand before you today and ask for your support. I'm looking forward to this conversation this evening. There's a lot of great issues to talk about, but we are at a point right now where there are some serious decisions that have to be made about the investment in our infrastructure. We are not on a good path right now. At a time when we're growing like we never have in our history, we are not making a reciprocal investment in our infrastructure. I will be advocating for those issues later. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dylan. Okay, it looks like we have a plethora of questions tonight. I want to thank the audience for participating in that way. Our first question is regarding the optimum size for the city. And the first question is going to be answered first by Skip. Then each candidate will have a chance to answer first. It will be in tandem. So the question is, the City Council seems to see growth as a way to be sustainable. What is your response to the concerns of the people who pay city, county, and school taxes and are inconvenienced by the ongoing development?
Well, development's always been an issue. Again, I lived here all my life, and you know, it's some development is good. Obviously, you can't survive without development. I think, you know, the planning board does a great job with getting the right type of development in the city. I think smart development is something that I think the city council has looked at and promotes. Occasionally, the city council will get a say on development, but for the most part, development is really a planning board issue. And the planning board and zoning board and basically the comprehensive plan pretty much is the footprint for the city, or the design for the mapping for the city that kind of creates any kind of development in the city.
Okay, thank you, Skip. Dylan? Absolutely. All right. Hold the timing until I repeat the question. Okay, regarding the size for the city, optimum size, the City Council seems to see growth as a way to be sustainable. What is your response to the concerns of the people who pay city, county, and school taxes and are inconvenienced by the ongoing development?
I agree 100% with the nature of what I believe that question is, and it's fundamentally this. Do we as citizens have a right to have a decision in our community and how big it is, and about what type of things that we want to have in terms of how large we feel comfortable being? Because with growth comes a responsibility to maintain our infrastructure. We're currently developing in a way that we never have before. And since 2014, we're not collecting a single penny from that development to support the infrastructure going forward. That's because of the choice that Skip Scirocco made to eliminate what were called connection fees at that time. And he's also currently using city resources and our websites to misinform the public. Connection fees are legal. They're used everywhere in this state, including Clifton Park, one of our closest neighbors. They're appropriate and it's just. I will be looking to reinstitute connection fees to help us balance that development with that needed infrastructure. Development is not bad. I absolutely agree with Skip on that point. Developers are not bad. We as citizens, though, have the right to define the environment they operate in. So it's not the planning board, it's us as citizens. Thank you.
Okay, Skip, you have a red card. That means, audience, that he has an extra minute to respond.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to respond in regards to the connection fees. Yes, the city council was the one that eliminated connection fees, not Skip Scirocco. Skip Scirocco, yes, was the commissioner of public works, but prior to Skip Scirocco being the commissioner of public works, the McTides were the ones who instituted the capital, or the connection fees. The connection fees were challenged in court. They were two times sued, lost. It was a failed policy. The city council looked at it and said, that's the end of it. We need to figure out another way to get the infrastructure up and running in the city. And we instituted the capital improvement fee, which is working 100%. I can't tell you, we're able to write the check for infrastructure in the city. $10 million I put into infrastructure in the city. That says a lot for my administration and what we're doing.
Great, thank you, Skip. And it looks like we have another red card. Dylan?
I'd like to continue that story, because that fee he's talking about, that he eliminated from the developers, he placed on all of you and me. So if we're talking about taxes and tax increases, that's the person to look at. It is entirely appropriate for developers to pay a connection fee when they connect themselves to our $500 million water system. It provides the value for those spaces to be habitable. They make money off of building in our city. There's tremendous value in them building, but there's tremendous value in us allowing that. So I completely disagree with his characterization. And again, it's completely just, it's completely legal. Laws are often challenged in court. That's how our system works. When something is wrong with the law, you fix it. You don't throw it away because the underlying policy is correct and just.
Okay, thank you, Dylan. All right, for the audience, I want to backtrack for 1 second because I did not explain to you the red card issue. Candidates have a minute and a half to respond to a question, but they've also been given 2 red cards. They've both used one of them, so they have one more chance to use a red card for extra time. They can use that time to add to their own remarks at the end of the minute and a half, or they can use it to respond to what the other candidate has said, but not during the closing statements. So I just wanted to make sure. Oh, and the questions will be directed to candidates in rotation. So the next question will be answered first by Dylan. And that question concerns water. The question is, what is or would be your plan for backup water supply in the event Luckberry Lake is out of commission for any period of time? Would you consider joining the county water authority, and why or why not? This is getting to be a pretty long question, but there's one more part. If you can add to it, what can be done to improve the taste of the water? Should I go back and repeat? Oh.
That's a great question because right now our main water source, Luckberry Lake, is threatened. If you look at the DOH website, they will tell you it is in a threatened state. Our dam is collapsing. So when you look at issues like infrastructure, and Skip has taken claim to $10 million, that equates out to $833,000 a year. Woefully inadequate. That won't even get you a half a mile of pipe replaced. So in terms of protecting our infrastructure, our water system and keeping that ours is essential to our future. There are taps along in the county water pipe. In an emergency, we can tap into them. I've had conversations with Supervisor Tara Gaston on how to accomplish that. I don't believe my opponents had those conversations. Secondarily, we're going to change the way that we treat our water. We use chlorine way too much. We've had problems because of that. You should not turn on your tap and have it feel like you're at the YMCA. I will change that.
Thank you, Dylan. Yes, Skip.
That question, just repeat the question, please.
Okay, so don't start the timer until I have repeated. Concerning water, what would be your plan for backup water supply in the event Luckberry Lake is out of commission for any period of time? Are you good with that? Should I do the rest? Oh, and also, would you consider joining the county water authority, and why or why not? And then the question of taste of the water.
The backup, the city has a backup. We developed a backup supply for the city a few years ago. We drilled four wells out to Bog Meadow, and it seems to be sufficient based on the Department of Health. Everything in that water treatment plant, regardless of what my opponent is saying, is regulated by the Department of Health. So we work very closely with the Department of Health when it comes to water treatment and anything regarding our water supply. I know he doesn't understand that part, and I know he thinks he can run the water treatment plant, but you cannot run the water treatment plant unless you are licensed by the state. Everybody that works in there is licensed. As far as the county water system is concerned, there was a big issue way back when you know the city wanted to tap into that water system, and the PCBs down at in the Hudson River kind of held people away. I say let's stay independent. We have a water system that's very supportive of the city. It's not going anywhere. We got plenty of water, and I say that's. Am I done? No. Okay. Well, okay. Again, I'm not in favor of going into the county unless we necessarily have to. I mean, that would be the last resort, in my opinion. But we got plenty of water in the city. And as far as the chlorine is concerned, if you don't like the chlorine in water, get a filter. You can you can filter it out, and that's it. We've talked to the experts on that, and that's the answer to the question.
Okay, Dylan, I think is using his second red card, so you have 1 minute.
Correct. So I'm glad the commissioner brought up the Department of Health. He's absolutely correct. We work and will have to work with the Department of Health. Unfortunately, we know how quick the state reacts, right? They're very slow to react. The $10 million that he's speaking about in investment all came at the end of consent decrees from the Department of Health. So when the state gets involved to tell you to do your job, my suggestion is you're not doing your job. And I also agree, put a point use filter at your house anywhere you or your animals are drinking. You do not want to consume water heavily laden in chlorine. It's not a good substance. We use it because it is inexpensive. 70% of Europe does not use it to disinfect their water. There are other technologies. The nature of our source water is such that we have to investigate these other technologies. If Loughbury Lake goes down in the middle of August, we can produce less than half the water we need. Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. Okay. We're going to move on to the next question, and it will be answered first by Skip. The topic is emergency situations. What experience do you have in responding to emergency situations and providing services to the public?
Currently, we've had two situations in the Department of Public Works. We had a fire at our DPW dispatch, and we had another fire in City Hall with a lightning strike. In both cases, we worked with the insurance company. The City Council has stepped forward, and we've done due diligence. In 3 days, I believe, we got City Hall up and running. That is unheard of in any government. And we also are working on putting a new dispatch building together over on the west side with a new sign shop and a what else do we have? Well, we got a sign shop in there. We have all our flower shop is going to be in there. Oh, and dispatch. That's another part of it. We are proud of what we've done, and the services are second to none.
Okay, thank you, Skip. Dylan, it is your time to answer questions.
Sure. So I think I've mentioned I've been working in the public sector my entire career. In the type of work that I do, my customers are dependent on me. And it often annoyed my wife over the last 25 years when I would get a call at 11 o'clock at night. But there's a reason people are calling you. They know you can solve problems. I've been standing in the middle of clarifiers that do 15 million gallons a day, and they're stopped up in these plants. The flow doesn't stop. And their outfall is the Hudson River. I know how to do critical thinking. I have been trained in root cause failure analysis. This is what I do for a living. And for a while, when I was considering running, the age of the infrastructure was concerning to me. I was afraid of something major failing on my watch. I'm sure Skip has a similar fear. But really what I came to understand is there's nobody better prepared to handle this now. I'm the person that we need making these decisions. I understand the depth and the complexity of these problems, and I know how to critically put solutions into place.
Thank you, Dylan. All right, the next question concerns government. And this question will be answered first by Dylan. How do state agencies impact the work of DPW, Department of Public Works?
So there's generally two that we're going to be dealing with: Department of Environmental Conservation, Department of Health. I mentioned earlier, they manage, they authorize, they watch the work we do. We get permitted by them for the work we do. When we don't do things adequately, they get involved and they tell us to do our job. That's what's happening right now. We are completely reactive. We fix things when they break. We need to be proactive. It's much, much, much less expensive to fix things before they break. We all understand this. We need to start having fiscal management in terms of the way that we're pursuing our infrastructure investment. We are not doing enough. It's that simple. We're not doing enough. And when the Department of Health has to get involved and tell you to do your job, I'm suggesting we got the wrong people making the decisions.
Thank you, Dylan. Skip?
Thank you. How well I know how it is to work with other agencies. When I got elected in 2008, I dealt with the DEC, I dealt with all those regulating agencies in regards to the oil spill, if you remember. There was the issue at illegal dumping at the compost site. There were all those issues that I had to deal with, and we dealt with them, in the best way we possibly could. The outcome was, we put a plan together to mitigate all the spill issues. The city had to go in and put additional structures in to take care of the oil separators in the garage. And at the compost site, we had to put a plan together for compost that actually went in there. It's illegal for somebody just to bring compost in there. So dealing with them, and it's something that you do almost on a regular basis if you're the Commissioner of Public Works.
Okay, thank you, Skip. All right, the next question concerns environment and infrastructure. And Skip will be the first one to answer this question. Are you satisfied with the progress the city has made in implementing the urban forest master plan? And what are your goals for 2020? To what extent will you partner with Sustainable Saratoga?
Okay, I think we've partnered with Sustainable Saratoga. I've met with them on numerous occasions. They do Tree-Toga, which is a tree planting program. Again, I was instrumental in, actually my department, it does the urban forestry plan. We put that together with the help of a consultant. We work closely together with the rest of the city council. We get funding, there's money in my budget to do tree planting. I hired the first arborist that the city's ever had. I think we've made a lot of strides, you know, moving forward when it comes to the trees and it comes to the canopy that the city is used to having, or that needs to have. I can't tell you how enjoyable it is when they have the Tree-Toga celebration. We have that every year. They have a celebration where they do tree planting, and I go there and I meet with the residents that do that. They're all volunteers and they do a great job. In the meantime, like I said, I have an arborist. We have a tree crew that's a crackerjack tree crew. These guys are out there and they're working every day, not just to cut down trees like my opponent says, because there are some trees in the city based on that plan that are invasive, and the invasive species are obviously an issue. So those trees get looked at first, but everything in the city right away we take care of, and I think we do a pretty good job doing it.
Thank you, Skip. Dylan?
Thank you. Appreciate that. Sustainable Saratoga, Saratoga Plan are two incredible organizations, and I do applaud Skip for his involvement with the Tree-Toga event. I think it's a tremendous community event, but it's a lot for show. It's not making an impact in reversing what Sustainable Saratoga they themselves track with their tree program. Over the last decade, we've lost over 7,000 trees from our urban forest. 7,000. Skip hasn't cut them all down, I've never said that. We've lost them to development. We've lost them to cuttings. We've lost them to a lot of different things. We know of the incredible health impacts on society that living in type of urban environment that has those trees, that green space, what it does for us from an air quality standpoint. We need to reverse that trend. In my first term, I'm putting a stretch goal on myself to plant 1,000 trees over the first 2 years, and I will need the community to do that. I will need the direction and support of Sustainable Saratoga so we understand where the parcels are that we need to exploit and get more trees into the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. All right, next question. We'll go first to Dylan. Where do you stand on outsourcing work with a union workforce?
I'm a strong union supporter. I grew up in a union household. My wife's a member of a union. Both my mother and father were members of unions. I am a Democrat. The right to collectively bargain is guaranteed within our Constitution, both federal and state. And quite honestly, I wish I could have it in my own profession. That being said, the specific question on how do I feel about it, what we need to do is we need to start understanding where our skill sets best lie. We should be able to pave roads. We should be able to do the basic services that Skip refers to. At the same time, do we have the capacity to run 10 miles of pipe? Probably not. So it's really job specific. It's partnering with the union to understand where their core strengths are and making sure that we're supporting jobs. I'm of the opinion that we're understaffed in the Department of Public Works. We've got guys out there doing very, very dangerous work. I want to see more support for them. I want them the opportunity, give them the opportunity to come home safely every single night. And I want them to have and feel the dignity of the work because the services they provide are incredibly important to the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan.
I guess I got to agree with Dylan on one issue, that we are understaffed. We had to lay off in 2010. We did have a budget meeting today, and we had some good discussion on additional staffing for some of the additional work that the city DPW is going to have to take on. As far as union and as far as the paving programs or any work that the city employees do, obviously they're all union. We live in a union world today, I guess, which I guess is a good thing. I'm a blue collar guy. They're all blue collar people. We're on the same page when it comes to how to feed your family at the end of the day and what needs to be done to make ends meet. And I'm all for union jobs. I'm all for people who, the city's got an apprenticeship program that every time we have a bid process over, I think it's $500,000. Actually, no, it's $200,000. We just reduced it through a resolution. We need to have the contractor needs to have an apprenticeship program. That was union. That was something that we put in place at the city council. As far as the city workforce, you're not going to find a better city workforce anywhere in the city. Again, we are understaffed. I'm not going to make any bones about that. You're right about that. But as far as the workforce and as far as getting stuff done efficiently, you're not going to beat what our guys can do for you. I'm proud of them, and you should be proud of them too.
Thank you, Skip. All right. Next question concerns ethics. This will go first to Skip. What can be done to improve ethical behavior in local government?
I think the city has an ethics board, and we all sign ethical disclosure. We all work together. I think that's something that that we need to do. As far as ethical, I mean that's really up to the individual. When we hire people, we interview them. They go through a process, with our HR people, the orientation process, and you would think that working for the city is a great job, and that's it.
Okay, thank you, Skip. Dylan?
Ethics in government, is that the question of our time or what? I would agree with Skip. I think ethics in large part is driven by the individual. You have to have the moral compass to make the right decision. You shouldn't look to an issue being, or your activities or actions being legal or illegal. That's a step too far. We need to be making decisions on the basis of what's right and wrong as our justification. But in terms of ethics, I think all of us can understand the pervasive influence of money in our electoral system. I would love to see us bring forward some type of reform as it relates to fundraising. I also want to see term limits, because the longer you're in office, the less accountable you become to the electorate, and the more accountable you become to the select few that are financing your campaigns. I largely finance this campaign on my own, and I greatly appreciate the individual donors that have made donations to me. But at the end of the day, ethics starts and ends with the individual, your moral compass, and how you make decisions.
Thank you, Dylan. Next question goes first to Bill. What is the criterion for continued street maintenance and overgrown sidewalks?
In terms of a question of that level of specificity, I mean, it must be driven by a state code. That's not really something that the commissioner regularly gets involved with. But what I can say is that the conditions of our roads and sidewalks is not acceptable. And again, it goes back to this central issue. Are we doing enough to maintain what we have? We have a city that's over 200 years old. We have pipes that are over 150 years old. Woodlawn half burned down because we have not enough flow and pressure for our firefighting throughout the city. We ask our firemen to run through a flaming door when we can't even guarantee that there's going to be water to support the activity. And as a homeowner, what that means is maybe your house, instead of being 20% burned down because of their bravery, it could be a complete loss. So ultimately, again, we need to be aggressive. We need to take money out of this development process and put it to gain for us as a city. We are Saratoga, all of us combined. Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. Skip?
Hey, can you repeat the question? Just, because I didn't understand what he...
Sure. Okay, what is the criteria?
What club would that be? I'm sorry.
That's all right. Okay. What is the criteria for continued street maintenance and overgrown sidewalks?
Say it again? Can you answer?
I said, is that in your notes there?
No, I don't need any notes for that one.
Excuse me, candidates, this is hot.
Yeah, I'm going to skip that question.
All right, as
Obviously,
long as
he's the only one that can answer that.
Okay. Next question. All right, going right along. I have another question here, and it's going first to Dylan. Is that correct? Yes. All right. If given $500,000 for infrastructure, where would you put it? And I would like to see you both be positive in your remarks.
Sure.
Each of you
Sure.
say your own.
Absolutely. I know exactly where I'd go with that money. A few different areas. First off, we have a source of water that has not had a safe yield study done on it since 1988. I was standing on this stage in high school in 1988. That's inadequate. He's been in office for 12 years. We need to understand how much water we actually can and do produce, because at peak flow, we're at about 85% of our capacity. We don't know if that's a safe level because we haven't done the testing. So I would get involved in those types of studies. I'd also put that money directly into a study to solve the problems of flooding in Geyser Crest, period. That needs to happen. That's been an underserved part of our community since I've been alive. They pay their taxes just the same as we all do, and they deserve not to wake up to 6 feet of water in their streets. They deserve to be able to have emergency services reach their home in a case of an emergency during a rainstorm. If I lived out there, I don't know how I would act, because quite honestly, it's really horrific when you see what they went through this summer.
Thank you, Dylan. Skip?
Thank you. As far as the $500,000, it depends on the project, I guess. You know, everything comes down to cost. You don't get very much when you have to go out to bid for projects and stuff like that, because you got to pay prevailing wage and that sort of thing. But if I had $5,000 just to spread around, yeah, I would look at stormwater. Stormwater is something that is obviously an issue. The city's been an issue for a long time. In Geyser Crest, as my opponent has spoke about, we currently did resolve some issues with flooding out there, and we're currently working on some issues now. As a matter of fact, we informed the residents out there with a letter that we had passed around. And we do have Barton and Judas working on a solution for their problems out there. The infrastructure out there was, I don't know, maybe in the 70s that was built, but it was inferior. It wasn't really up to standards like it should have been. I take it it's going to be an expensive project out there, as well as some other parts of the places in the city. We have had other issues, other places in the city where we've taken care of flooding, but obviously Geyser Crest is one issue that we've been working on. There's been a lot of news about it, and we are working on it with a consultant to come up with a solution to actually mediate the issues, or mitigate it, excuse me.
Thank you, Skip. All right, the next question goes to Skip first. And we have 2 more questions here, and then we'll have closing statements. I think these are good ones, so this goes to Skip in regards how you make decisions. If elected, you cannot always please the departments you supervise, nor will the laws you enact for the entire city be appreciated by all voters. What factors will affect your decisions?
I'm sorry, read that, can you read that again?
The whole thing?
Yeah, please.
Okay. If elected, you cannot always please the departments that you supervise, nor will the laws you enact for the entire city be appreciated by all voters. What factors will affect your decisions?
First of all, I consult with the public a lot. I mean, I think the public input is more important than anything that's, obviously, they're the people that I work for, is the public. First and foremost, if there is an issue, we try to get out to the public and talk to them. The department heads, we try to talk to the department heads, depending on what the issue is, to try to get some solutions from them. The other thing that we do is occasionally we'll hire a consultant to look into some of the issues to give us some solutions, for some of the problems that we have. But for the most part, I try to be a better listener than a talker. Obviously, not that great when it comes to talking, but I guess I can listen, and I guess I can really get things done based on what my track record is. I don't think anybody will dispute that. So that's.
Okay, thank you, Skip. Dylan?
Could you please repeat the question? So that's a weird question, I'm sorry.
No, I understand. Okay, wait a minute. It regards how you make decisions.
I get that, but the preface doesn't necessarily match up to the end.
If elected, you cannot always please the departments you supervise, nor will the laws you enact for the entire city be appreciated by all voters. What factors will affect your decisions?
Absolutely. Okay, great. Thank you. For one, when you become a candidate for office, I personally feel, unfortunately, we have this, this two-party system, and let's be honest, I don't think it represents the vast majority of us. But unfortunately, we're forced to play a role in it. In doing so, you're engaged in going out in this activity of campaigning. I've talked to more citizens than any candidate running in this election cycle. I'm confident of that. Thousands of conversations. And what I would offer is that's exactly where I'm going to get my ideas, my feedback, my direction from, because I've knocked on Republican doors, I've knocked on Democratic doors, I've knocked on unaffiliated doors. We're all Saratogians, and at the end of this election, they need to be represented consistently by the person that's in office. The issues that I'm up here advocating for tonight are not political. They're common sense. They're driven by my professional acumen. I was always held to a very high standard by my parents in terms of integrity. Later in life, when you find out that people lie, it became a bit of a problem, but that is life sometimes. But at the end of the day, I'm going to be making decisions specifically on the needs of our community, what our citizens need to have happen, period.
Okay, thank you, Dylan. All right. The next question will go first to Dylan, and as a council member, you will be one of 5 voters. This is our last question, by the way, before closing statements. As a council member, you will be one of 5 voters who make decisions for the entire community. How would you deal with the racism and hate crimes in the city?
I have to say that the last couple of years, I think, for most of us, have been a complete shock to see people that we respected and thought very highly of to start expressing a lot of different views. I'm an immigrant, or rather, I'm a child of an immigrant, and as such, I readily identify with people who are marginalized, who are on the fringe, who are subject to this type of behavior. We've all seen that person in that black pickup truck driving around with his idiot flags and his racist statements. I think we need to join as a community. I think that we need to express and make sure everybody understands this place is not a place of hate. Saratoga Springs is a loving, enjoyable place. I know its citizens are full of incredible people who have a lot of compassion and empathy. Specifically dealing with it, I think issues that hate crimes go to the state level, so I don't think it's a legislative thing. I think it's something much more about leadership and engagement with our public, being accessible, attending events where these issues are discussed, having meaningful conversations, and not just doing the glad handing and taking credit for the conversation, but hearing the message and actually carrying that value forward over and over and over again. We're going to have to stamp this out and send these people back under their rocks, but I'm certainly willing to fight that battle.
Thank you, Dylan. Skip?
I can tell you there's no place in the city for hate. That's just not acceptable in the city of Saratoga Springs. Again, I grew up here. I lived here all my life. I raised my family here. They're raising their family here. And it's just not an acceptable issue. I know there's a lot of people in the city that feel that way, and I'm certainly one of them. It's a different world today. It's a world where, we're dealing with, 9/11 issues, and we're dealing with, issues of racial slurs, and I mean, it's just not a good situation. I certainly would support any legislation that the city council, or even bring legislation to the city council, not supporting anything in regards to any racial or slander, or, I mean, we're dealing with, on a regular basis, like I say, on a regular basis, we're dealing with, the graffiti type of situation. We immediately, erase that. Shame on those people that do those kind of things, because it's just not this kind of community. This is a community of loving people, and I think, it shows when people come to city council meetings, how passionate they are about, different things. It breaks my heart when I see that kind of situation. And, again, it's not something I would support, and that's something I would ever support.
Thank you, Skip. All right. We're going to move on to closing statements now, not because we don't have any more questions. The audience has done a very good job, but we need to move on to the other race candidates tonight. So Skip goes first. Closing statement, 1 minute.
Thank you. Again, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this debate, my opponent, and my opponent for participating, and the public for attending. The race for Commissioner of Public Works comes down to a simple choice about experience and credentials. There's only one candidate who has the experience running a large municipal department and providing services to the public. Only one candidate who has invested millions of dollars in water, sewer, and road infrastructure. Only one candidate has award-winning historic preservation projects. Only one candidate has demonstrated careful stewardship over the city's urban forest and natural resources. Only one candidate has a real plan for the future of DPW. Only one candidate in this race has run a positive, issue-based campaign, and only one candidate will be a full-time Commissioner of Public Works dedicated to building for everyone's future in the city. I humbly ask the public to vote for experience and to ignore ugly politics when casting their ballots on Election Day, and I would be honored to have your support on November 5th. Thank you.
Thank you, Skip. Please hold your applause until everyone is finished. We said that earlier. Okay. Dylan, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. We're used to those people.
No.
So, I want to thank everybody again for coming tonight. This has been an incredible experience. This has been a lifelong journey for me to come forward and ask to serve this community. It's a pretty easy choice if you ask me. I think we've got some incredibly challenging choices that we have to make. We've got a homeless problem that we have to bring empathy to and solve. We have to bring disparate parties within this community together to solve those problems. I've been working in the private sector. I am not a career politician. I'm not pretending to be one. I'm someone who's worked in industry and in the private sector and has been incredibly successful bringing people together, making deals, driving change in organizations that have resulted in millions and millions of dollars in savings. Okay, I understand how to measure and improve. We need to make a change. And right now, we're at a time where we need to make drastic changes in our approach to infrastructure, in our approach to how our development process is supporting this community going forward. And I ask you, on Election Day, November 5th, you can choose the career politician, or you can choose the engineer to solve your problems.
Thank you, Dylan. Each candidate candidate has 2 red cards. So if you see a candidate speaking after their turn, that means they put a red card forward, and I will try to remind the audience that that is what is happening, and they get an extra minute, but only during question and answer period, not during the opening statements and not during the closing statements. I'd like to see a positive and respectful conversation, both from the candidates and quiet from the audience, okay? And so our candidates are in alphabetical order. Meg Kelly, who is running on the Democratic Working, excuse me? In alphabetical order. Oh. Okay, you got me on that one, I'm sorry. Okay, so the first candidate who will be announced in alphabetical order is Timothy Holmes, running on the Republican line, and Meg Kelly, running on the Democratic, Working Families, and Independence lines. It's time to hear their 2-minute opening statements. And Meg goes first because they drew lots.
Good evening. My name is Meg Kelly, and I am the mayor of Saratoga Springs. It has been a privilege to serve my hometown, and I am seeking another term to continue the success of my first 2 years. Collaboration, compromise, and communication. These are guiding concepts of my administration. It is rewarding to report that we have achieved considerable accomplishments during my tenure. I have many projects that I have initiated, as well as many that I have completed from prior administrations, including complete Geyser Road Trail, struggling since 2008. Groundbreaking is now scheduled for the fall of 2019. Complete City Center parking garage, deadlocked over 30 years. We hope groundbreaking this fall. Ensure Code Blue success after succeeding to find funding and temporary space while maintaining positive relationships with neighbors, concerned citizens, and advocacy groups. Finalize options for land and complete East Side Emergency Services Station. Continue to encourage sustainable initiatives. Finish the UDO zoning and use the next 2 years to ensure it's fit. Pursue grants aggressively. We attained and managed millions for infrastructure, trails, housing, clean transportation, open space, and natural resources. Ensure the move back to City Hall is as seamless as our emergency relocation after the fire. And most significantly, the council is now defined by civility. Our new level of teamwork and efficiency lets us focus on the work and get the job done. I thank the League of Women Voters for their considerable efforts in hosting this occasion, and thank you all for attending here tonight, including my opponent, Tim Holmes. I welcome our questions and look forward to this evening.
Thank you, Meg. Tim?
Yes, good evening, and thank you, League of Women Voters, Mayor Kelly, and residents in attendance. I am Tim Holmes, and I am running for mayor of Saratoga Springs. My family ties to this great city date to the early years of the village. I bought my own first home here in 1981. My wife, Libby Smith Holmes, and I fully enjoy the benefits of living in this special place. We support local institutions and the local economy, knowing how important it is to recirculate dollars within the community.
Can you hold your mic a little bit closer?
We support local institutions and the local economy, knowing how important it is to recirculate dollars within the community. We volunteer in many aspects of life. Currently, I serve on the Open Space Advisory Committee and the Smart City Broadband Commission. I have 30 years of municipal service, elected, volunteered, and as an organizational community partner, sustained along with business livelihood and philanthropy. This has provided me with experience in finance, strategic planning, and municipal management. My professional specialties have included detection of fraud at the Philatelic Foundation in New York, case management, Davis Polk Wardwell, watchdog of the charities at National Charities Information Bureau, I volunteered with the National Executive Service Corps in reorganizing Montclair Art Museum and other work. My first job was as a construction laborer, probably my favorite. Now I regularly volunteer with Rotary International, Friends of Saratoga Battlefield, and other groups. I am especially interested in Saratoga's history, traditions, and culture, and its ability to periodically reinvent itself. Studying 200 years of growth here and change is informative about where the city is headed and how we can plan for it. Let's plan for the next generation, at least for 30 years out, and see what we can see. I have always been grateful for the opportunity to serve this city and would relish the chance to serve with our council members as mayor.
Thank you, Tim. Now we're going to be moving on to questions. Candidates, remember that you have 2 red cards to use for an extra minute to add to your remarks or to respond to the other candidate. We go first to Meg, who is going to answer the first question. How do you view the relationship between the mayor and the County Board of Supervisors?
Well, we have 2 representatives from the Board of Supervisors in Saratoga Springs. I feel that I do work with them closely on certain issues, but basically we have been working, we work together on a HUD project, and we're working on Code Blue. So I think our relationship is there. I think it works. I think that we need, to mend some bridges at the county level, and I think that I personally have been working on that, going down and meeting with the county administrator, and also with, I'm sorry, I don't understand that. Is that 1 minute to go?
1 minute, and then you'll...
Okay, sorry. I'm working with the county administrator. I meet quarterly with him, and I'm also working with the commissioner of social services to meet with her to see if we can get the services that we need for our homeless in Saratoga Springs. So I feel that the supervisors as a whole, as a group, I work really well with. I think that we can always find room for improvement.
Okay, thank you, Meg. Tim?
Yes, I've been fortunate to have spent the last 20 years working in Saratoga County with the county supervisors, carrying out the mission of a great city like this to spread the Saratoga method of economic development and redevelopment. I was sent out by our Chamber of Commerce, Joe Dalton and Cindy Allen, if anyone remembers that wonderful lady, to see what we could do to lift up some of the communities on the Hudson River that were really flat. And fortunately, the techniques that have worked in Saratoga Springs over the last 50 years of capitalizing on the history, the infrastructure, and the culture has begun to take hold in some of those communities. I've been able to work with county supervisors from the towns of Saratoga, Northumberland, Stillwater, Malta, as well as other layers of government, New York State agencies, U.S. Department of the Interior, and other agencies. But certainly the county stands out in its ability to help to grow the county on a parallel with how we're growing here.
Okay, thank you, Tim. The next question will go first to Tim. Optimum size for the city. The City Council seems to see growth as a way to be sustainable. What is your response to the concerns of the people who pay city, county, and school taxes and are inconvenienced by the ongoing development?
That is one of the top issues of the day. I hear a lot about it, and as I've been walking through Saratoga Springs since the spring, this is a concern. And there are a couple of levels of that. Number one is, how does it affect the quality of our life here? Two is, what are the capacities of the city for managing the levels of traffic we're attracting, not to mention the infrastructure to support many more residents. Those questions are very much on the top of the agenda that I would like to go into as mayor. And we have to look at our planning strategies and processes. And I'm finding that things are moving so fast today, including in development, that I believe we have to streamline the planning processes so that the citizens can be heard more directly on proposed development. I hope I get a chance to talk more on that. I'm probably running out of time here.
Okay, you still have 30 seconds.
Very good. Again, the working with the county now is one of the objectives. We're seeing towns merge together, regions merge as growth comes this way out of the heart of the capital district. So it's just imperative that we have more feedback from people. I understand there's frustration at the mayor and council, and we need to correct that.
Now your time is up. Okay. All right, so maybe you can add to those comments later on. Next question.
No, it's my
I'm sorry.
turn. Thank you. I would first refer everybody to the comprehensive plan that was passed in 2015. That is our guiding document, along with the zoning ordinances. We are updating right now the zoning ordinance in the city, and we should be bringing that at the end of the year for a vote. I think it's a long overdue document that has to be updated so it matches the comprehensive plan. Also, it's who you put on the land use boards as a mayor. And in past years, it's been, political appointees. And I'm going to tell you that I instituted an application online where people can go and tell me that they're interested in serving on one of these boards. We ask for their resume, we ask for references, they come in, we sit with a panel, we interview them, and we're really doing our due diligence to put the right people on to see the right growth in the city and the right decisions being made on the land use boards. So with that being said, I think comprehensive plan, zoning ordinance, and the land use boards are critical documents to be following.
Thank you, Meg. Okay, the next question will go first to Meg. As a member of City Council, you will wear two hats. That means administrative and legislative, under the Saratoga Springs current city charter. How will you separate the two roles that are often conflicting?
Well, I'm doing it well for 2 years. Actually, in order to do it well, I do believe you have to be in there a lot of hours. I think it's critical as an administrator. I came in, I had to revamp our building department. That can't happen. Leadership has to start at the top, and you have to be there guiding your staff and guiding your employees on how we're going to do that with that vision. You have to create a new process. So that part is, you have to be there, you have to work with your people. So the administrative part is one piece, and the legislative part is another piece. And I tend to separate them. I usually do my legislative work at night when you go home after work and you're reading in your bed, and you read all the policies and everything that's coming through. So it is time. You have to put the time in. You know, this is a public service position, and it does dedicate a lot of time in this form of government with the administrative roles and the legislative roles.
Thank you, Meg. Tim?
Being involved with the League for many years, and this being one of their topics on how government is challenged by having both administrative and legislative functions combined. It can cause problems where politics can invade governmental city halls or other legislative locations. I think what I would do, what I know I would do is look at the staff that we have who are the permanent, full-time career professionals and fully recognize what they do in the city. We rely on them a great deal to manage business day-to-day of the city. And I believe that the mayor and council has the opportunity, especially with 2-year refreshment, to be challenged to listen again to the residents, to focus more on bringing the vision of the people that they've heard, and to create policies and planning for the future. That's where I believe that the mayor and council could have a valuable role, seeing potential problems looming up, such as development which has consequences not previously perceived.
Thank you, Tim. Next question will go first to Tim. This is regarding insurance. Will either of you pledge that if elected, you will do away with free health care for life after 10 years of service and replace it to be more in line with CSEA's workers' contribution tiers?
The sound of it, that is absolutely something I could sign up for.
Okay.
Me too.
Okay, all right. Next question goes first to Meg. What can be done to improve ethical behavior in local government?
Well, this word ethics and ethical has been tossed around, and I have done no less than to uphold the city code of ethics, and this has been clearly demonstrated, and I will continue to do so. So that's my statement, and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you, Meg. Timothy?
This is one of the major topics of the day, nationally as well as in our region. It has something to do with campaign financing. It also has to do with relationships of those who do business with the city. And I think that it's a problem that certainly can begin to show up and have the appearance of creating difficulties in this city. The problem with a large donation to campaigns is that it's unfair to candidates or incumbents due to the expectations of the donors. And this happens everywhere. It is something that causes great concern among the voters, especially those who don't make great contributions or don't believe that that's a way to influence their elected officials. With the appearance of paying to play, whether or not it's occurring here, the appearance shows up, and as in the conflict of interest area, appearances are significant in the eye of the beholder, which in this case is the voters. So it calls on the voters to be observant. The problem with special relationships of suppliers to the city or beneficiaries from the city for decisions that are made by the city is that it scares off new residents or even investors who look for stability and predictability.
Okay, thank you, Tim. All right. Did you want to add any remarks? All right. The next question goes first to Tim. How can Saratoga Springs get more citizens involved in decision-making? And would you consider changing board tenures to 3 years?
Okay, I think one of the classic problems that I've seen, and I've been a municipal official before this, is finding enough good volunteers for boards and so forth. I think that the idea of term limits may apply to elected officials because they may get entrenched and they have a lot of sway on what happens. But I do agree entirely that And there should be every opportunity for citizens to participate in every way possible. And it has to do with the way that boards are scheduled, how they're structured, if they can be made flexible so that more people can participate. I think that is vital. And I also feel that with the new technologies that I hope we'll get to talk about, that there may be ways for people to really know what's going on. We know today that we're all living by these devices or devices at home with similar information on them. And rather than relying on a small classified ad to notify people that something's going to happen on their block or in their neighborhood, that's 19th century technology. I think that people should be alerted to changes that are coming to their neighborhood or substantial ones coming to the city using today's technologies and give them a chance to respond that way.
Okay, thank you, Tim.
Could you repeat that question, please?
Sure. How can Saratoga Springs get more citizens involved in decision-making, and would you consider changing board tenures to 3 years?
Board 10 years to 3 years. That's where I'm confused.
Okay, I'm not sure what the length of tenure is now.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna talk about the land use boards. The land use boards are 7 years. And I appoint, the mayor appoints the land use boards, the zoning board and planning board. It is very, 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 very difficult to find people to serve. I'm going to tell you that. We have tried many different routes to get people to serve as far as our advertising at city council meetings. We put it on the website. We created an application process. I've asked people to send me any of their friends. I mean, it is really, really hard to find people to serve. So when they come in and interview, I sit down with my panel, we interview, and we ask them, before they accept the position, we say, can you go home and watch a couple of the tapes from the meetings? And I would say a good 50% of the time, I don't get a call back. So that means that, you know, they're seeing that this is a huge, huge commitment. What I would like to do, and we have been talking about this at the city council, because it is very, very difficult to take that 7-year down to a 5-year. Put it at a 5-year. It's a little less commitment, and I think we get more people to stand up and serve on these boards.
Thank you, Meg. Tim? Oh, you already answered. Sorry. Okay. Meg, you will be answering first next time. This time. Charter change is coming up for a vote again. Do you favor or oppose the proposal, and why?
Well, I'm not going to say for or against. I lived that nightmare once, and I'm not going to do it again. I learned over my experience that it is up to the people. Let the people vote, and that's how if we need the charter change, the people of this city will do it, not Meg Kelly.
Thank you, Meg. Tim?
I understand that the Mayor and Council has put that on the ballot for November 2020, and the people will decide. I will absolutely adhere to their decision on that. Should I be in office at the time, I would implement it if it passed. And on the other side of it, can there be some more discussion about the impact, the shape of the Mayor and Council, the structure of separating legislative from administrative? I think there can be a lot of healthy discussion about that. And the question will be whether some of that discussion occurs before November 2020. But the people will decide, and will absolutely honor the people's vote.
Okay. Thank you, Tim. Next question goes first to Tim. Please explain your position on hospital expansion.
Yes, that's a topic of a lively debate this year. We all love our hospital. There's no question about that. And I, along with many, would like to see it prosper and to continue in its service to this community and those who come to this community for its services. The question is partly in the details of how they are going to grow. They have a substantial campus on the periphery of the city, and they've been there for quite a while. There's a proposal that they convert the zoning on a piece of land which they've just recently bought, which lies in the middle of a residential neighborhood. I think discussions are going to take place. I believe that the hospital would do well to follow its future path, which it may already have in its plans, which is to start building up on its own campus. It has 30 acres, 20 are blacktop, and 10 are buildings, and they've got lots of opportunity to do that. They will then look to the next step of growth. I appreciate what they're doing, going out to occupy mall spaces. I think that's a highly effective way to readapt space. Again, we have positive feelings towards the hospital, and especially the staff there that are beloved ones.
Thank you, Tim. Meg?
So on the hospital issue, what Meg Kelly thinks is irrelevant. My responsibility under the law is to see that the zoning ordinance is in compliance with the comprehensive plan. That is what I am legally bound to do, and that's what we will do. So as far as anything else on the hospital, I have no comment. It's not Meg Kelly's decision.
Thank you, Meg. Okay. First question goes to Meg. Oh, a red card? All right, 1 minute.
Yes. Again, in a positive vein, the hospital now owns the piece of property that they had been looking at for some years. And I'd be in favor of their building on it according to the zoning that's there. And that is residential. However, should they move to take that property off the tax rolls at $3 million, I think that they could face an uproar from the taxpayers. And further, if they should turn it into a tax-free housing development that they own, I believe that is also unfair competition to all of the housing that already exists in the city.
Okay, thank you. This question goes first to Meg. What experience do you have managing multi-level organizations that execute multi-million-dollar projects?
I came in 3 years ago as deputy mayor, and I hit the ground running. I learned how the city operated. I learned the budgeting process. I put together the capital budget. I then became mayor, and I proceeded the same way. I mean, I work side by side with the other commissioners making decisions for this city, and my experience has come from I was a golf professional by trade. I ran my own businesses. I ran a children's theater, founded a not-for-profit, and then I came in, and this was the government, and it was completely different. And I hit the ground running. I have a great team that I'm working with in City Hall right now. The finance commissioner, DPW, DPS, and accounts, we are all on the same page. We're working side by side, and we're helping each other learn as we go. I mean, they have helped me, and I've helped them. So as far as experience, I have the experience. I've proven myself over the last year and a half, and I feel that going forward, I'm just going to continue to move the city in the right direction.
Thank you, Meg. Tim?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, I've served previously as a municipal official. I was a council president and acting mayor, commissioner of finance, of buildings, of fire, utilities, member and our council liaison with planning boards and zoning boards of adjustment in a community very much like Saratoga Springs. I wrote master plans, municipal and regional, and yet I regard this kind of service as volunteer service that we do for the sake of our communities and the sake of ourselves to have a great environment to live in. I've always sustained a public life such as this, which I can now dedicate most of my time to, but also a professional life in business and also a life in philanthropy. So, in addition to the municipal life that we're referring to here, I've managed a foundation and several companies which are on a scale parallel to what we're looking at here. I'm active in some substantial charities. I'm working with Rotary International and other organizations, which I mentioned, and those projects are also on a scale that we're speaking of.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. The next question goes first to Tim. What are your goals for the next 2 years? I assume in your position as mayor.
Yes, I've got two great plans in mind on November 6th. And one of them is to do this, another one's just as good. So I'm going to take my wife for a nice trip. But if I should have the good fortune to be elected to this position, and I can tell you, the thrill of the possibility is just so fulfilling an idea to me. What I see happening here in the next 2 years is that we want to get hold of the planning processes. We want to complete the Unified Development Ordinance, which will include an updated zoning map, and that will have absorbed the comprehensive plan that Meg referred to, because these documents are years out of date now. That is what is in part causing confusion and turmoil in the council chamber and for residents. So we need to get those documents finished. I'd like to see the planning processes more efficient and more transparent, so that people could know what's going on and that it is easier to get to. We want to catch up our documentation. We want to see clearly the work that's gone into it, and we might want to adjust our view because of the level of development that's occurring. I do believe that by working closely with the county supervisors, I can make a significant difference in all those subjects.
We had to stop and sign up. Okay.
Thank you. I have a few initiatives that I want to finish. One is I want to see the parking garage completed. I want to see Geyser Trail completed. They're both, one is broken ground and Geyser Trail will break ground this fall. We need an Eastern Ridge EMS station, and that's critical. I've been working on that since April diligently, and we should be having something coming soon down the pike to announce. We need to finish the UDO, as my opponent was saying. We need to have that ordinance in place. We're going to continue to work on our building and planning department to make efficiencies there so we can streamline these permits coming through and there's not the long wait that we have. We've changed that from 16 weeks down to 5 weeks, but we need to get better than that. And then my last piece is to reinvent our recreation department, because after the fire we moved into the rec center. So we need to reinvent that recreation program, and we're working on that right now. So with those initiatives, my plate is full. And that's why I want to come back and finish these next 2 years so I can bring those home.
Thank you, Meg. And this question goes to you. I have 2 more questions before closing statements. Does that sound about right? Time-wise, is that good for you? Okay. All right. How do you think we can increase our revenue base? What programs would you like to have implemented that will generate revenue?
Well, there's a couple ways that we're doing that through the mayor's department right now. With the efficiencies that we made in the building and planning department, we have taken in a lot more permits, and that just generates more income. The other way is I did reinstate the plumbers board, and that was something that was stopped probably 20 some odd years ago for whatever reason, political reasons. And we did reinstitute that. And that is, over the years, has lost millions of dollars for the city. So bringing that back, we will be gaining that revenue through the mayor's department also. So I do believe that with these changes just in the mayor's department, the revenue increasing will be there.
Thank you, Meg. Tim?
Yes, I believe a way to go is to engage in what we call smart planning, and also to bring in 21st century technologies. They're largely invisible, but we reap the benefits. What we see on our televisions or on our computers today are thanks to the kind of communications that we can experience today due to what's underground or strung between poles. But as you know, and one of your colleagues started a great program for the city, which can be transformational. When Saratoga Springs jumped onto the industry of bringing in a railroad, the first year railroads were available here. When they brought in electricity, Thomas Edison was here installing it. So this is the kind of technology which can keep Saratoga Springs on the leading edge of what it is, which is a delightful destination, a fabulous place to live, without huge growth of physical entities coming in at low yield rates. And so we have a choice to either become a smart city where we can have companies that come and yield millions of dollars following the track of global foundries at very small scale and very clean, or we can go into warehousing, trucking, and older industries that would otherwise fill the place up. We need to work with the county on this, and that would be one of my primary objectives.
Thank you, Tim. Last question before closing statements. We'll go first to Tim. What steps will you take to keep downtown a beautiful destination for residents, visitors, and businesses?
A lot of time on that, and I have a note here that I was hoping we could touch on that has to do with people in dire circumstances that have come into the city. They're attracted, and they're the homeless people, and they're in bad shape, and they make it uncomfortable for residents to be there as well. There are ways to deal with that. They were discussed by some of the other candidates here. They involve working with the county to have the county take its fair share and distributing the resources for that, and also facilities in other towns in this county, rather than this city taking it all on. Now, the downtown is the jewel of Saratoga Springs in the gem of the Capital District. The problems there include the density abuse, parking, and otherwise reaching some capacities. So we need to listen closely to our downtown merchants, to the residents who want to go there but find frustration, and also streamline in the new parking facilities that are made available, and that will include promotion and information distribution. Again, a few simple applications of technologies that we all use today can help people get around better and keep merchants healthy.
Thank you, Tim. Meg?
There's a few things that I would look at. One is the parking garage is vital to the city center. The city center is the economic engine for Broadway. So those two go hand in hand. So we have to keep that city center going vibrant. That's why we need the parking garage. So with those two happening, I think that we'll get the conventions. Bigger conventions are coming in. This is why we needed that garage, because they were not coming. We lost 14 events due to parking issues. So they're going elsewhere, and we want them to come back here. So to keep our downtown vibrant, we need that economic engine, the city center. The other things that I would look at is the homeless population. And with the new commissioner coming in of public safety, I will be working with that commissioner to challenge them to help work with shelters of Saratoga, make a plan, We are doing that right now, and we just need a new commissioner to come in to help us bring it over the finish line. We also need to work with the trucks on Broadway. I think I've almost been hit twice by Starbucks, so I think that we need to really look at that. We have UPH going in there, and we might have to reroute some trucks here because they can't be making that turn. We're gonna have school buses in there dropping off to UPH, so we have to keep working on how we can change that flow through the city. And when the new commissioner of public safety comes in, we'll be looking at that. The music downtown at night is a constant problem because I get the phone calls on Monday morning. They call and call. Oh, I'm sorry, that's my first stop sign. Okay, sorry.
Okay, well, you still have your closing statement ahead of you. Remember that no red cards can be used now, and you will have 1 minute. Before we go to closing statements, I want to thank all of you who came tonight for your civic involvement and showing that you care. Don't forget to vote on Tuesday, November 5th, but also remember there is early voting starting Saturday, the 26th. Look up the places are available in your program and on the table. So no excuse for not voting this year. Meg Kelly will give her closing statement first.
Thank you. Thank you very much to the League of Women Voters for the opportunity to discuss issues, priorities, and plans. I believe that I present a solid record of service to the city of Saratoga Springs. In addition, I bring experience, working partnerships, and considerable knowledge about the city business to provide a refined expertise to the office of mayor. I also have the energy and enthusiasm to complete works in progress while bringing along new ideas to build upon. The position of mayor is not for the faint at heart. The hours are long, tensions run high, and issues are complex. I believe that my record of successful projects demonstrates my ability to navigate all of this and more. In closing, I would like to thank my opponent, Mr. Holmes. Before the election began, we agreed to campaign on issues and avoid insults. It can be done, and we are clear evidence of that. I would like to thank Mr. Holmes for honoring our pledge. My best to all of you, and please vote November 5th. Your vote matters.
Amen. Thank you, Meg. Tim?
Yes, thank you, and thank you, Mayor Kelly. Thank you all who are attending. And before the moment slips away, I would like to acknowledge the mayor and her comment. And we agreed that this would be a campaign of decency and to set an example for possible other layers of government that can't get to it, and we'll call it the Saratoga Standard. So since the spring, I've been engaged in a listening tour around the city. There's been a time of learning and connecting with residents. I've received widespread support across the community and all interests. We can move forward with energetic attention to the homeless population and safe neighborhoods, moving the planning forward with the maximum participation of the residents, good interaction and trust between the public and the council, a more dynamic relationship with the county that does hold answers for us. Bringing technology with 21st century capability for education, business environment, and smart city administration. It's time for action that includes all. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you.